Wednesday, August 14. Who is the greatest? Read Mark chapter 9, verses 30 to 41. What is different about Jesus' second prediction of his death and resurrection, and compare it with Mark 8:31. Also, what do the disciples argue about, and what instruction does Jesus give? First of all, we read Mark 9, beginning at verse 30. They left that place and passed through Galilee. Jesus did not want anyone to know where they were, because he was teaching his disciples. He said to them, "The Son of Man is going to be delivered into the hands of men. They will kill him, and after 3 days he will rise." But they did not understand what he meant and were afraid to ask him about it. They came to Capernaum. When he was in the house, he asked them, "What were you arguing about on the road?" But they kept quiet because on the way they had argued about who was the greatest. Sitting down, Jesus called the 12 and said, "Anyone who wants to be first must be the very last and the servant of all." He took a little child whom he placed among them. Taking the child in his arms, he said to them, "Whoever welcomes one of these little children in my name welcomes me, and whoever welcomes me does not welcome me, but the one who sent me." "Teacher," said John, "we saw someone driving out demons in your name, and we told him to stop because he was not one of us." "Do not stop him," Jesus said, "for no one who does a miracle in my name can in the next moment say anything bad about me, for whoever is not against us is for us. Truly I tell you, anyone who gives you a cup of water in my name because you belong to the Messiah will certainly not lose their reward." And we compare that with Mark 8:31. He then began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things, and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed, and after 3 days rise again. In the first prediction, Jesus refers to those who will reject him and kill him. In the second prediction, Jesus refers to the fact that he will be betrayed. The betrayer is not pointed out at this time, but the reader already knows who it is because of the identification of Judas in Mark 3:19, and Judas Iscariot, who betrayed him. Again, the Lord refers to being killed and then rising after 3 days. But the disciples seem even less interested in the details of this prediction than in the first. Unwelcome news does not garner discussion. In Mark 8:27, Jesus was north of the Sea of Galilee near Caesarea Philippi. In Mark 9:32, he is passing through Galilee, and in Mark 9:33, he enters Capernaum. Thus, it is not difficult to envision his journey from north to south. However, he enters Capernaum alone as the 12 disciples lag behind. In the house, he inquires about their discussion on the way. No one speaks up, a sure sign of their discomfort at the question, almost like children caught doing something they know is wrong. Their conversation had been about who was the greatest. As little as some people are willing to admit it, this question of who is greatest is something everyone thinks about. But in the kingdom of God, this idea gets turned upside down. Jesus responds to the problem in 2 steps. First, he utters the clear statement that to be first, or greatest, you have to become a servant. Then Jesus illustrates his meaning by an action. Evidently, a child was standing nearby listening. Jesus takes the child and places him in the midst of the group. That would be intimidating for the child. But then Jesus takes the child in his arms, relaxing the scene. He teaches that if you receive the child, you receive him, and if you receive him, you receive his Father. Thus, the lowest child is linked to God himself. John asks a question about outsiders, and Jesus teaches the important lesson that those not against us are for us. The Lord affirms that helping those in Christian service, even in small ways, does not go unnoticed in heaven. And so to finish the day, what is the biblical idea of greatness in contrast to the world's idea? Which one are you striving for? This lesson was read by Dr. Percy Harrold for Christian Services for the Blind. Sponsored by the Sabbath School Department and distributed through Hope Channel Australia, this podcast is also redistributed by Hope Channel Germany, Christian Record Services for the Blind. It is also available on SoundCloud and through multiple podcast distributors, including Apple iTunes. And you can listen and watch at the same time on YouTube. Remember, God is always faithful.